U.S. stocks are mixed on this Wednesday afternoon. We're seeing better than expected economic data coming out from the U.S., and we still have more Fed speeches later today. So joining me now is Tim Anderson of TJM Investments. Tim, great to have you here.
It's nice to talk to you.
Well, this is the first time we're speaking since the failed Republican attempt at repealing and replacing Obamacare. But at least for today's session, focuses on Brexit as well as economic data and Fed talk. So where do we go from here?
You know, I think we're in a real, we're in kind of a low volatility but high anxiety market right now. Even though the Dow was down 8 days in a row, and a lot of people made a big deal about it and said the last time it was down 8 days in a row was in 2011, we were really down like a total of less than 2%. And we maybe only had one real significant down day in that entire stretch. Had a very nice recovery, obviously, on Monday off the lows. And in that 8 day stretch that we just had, we were down less than 2%. The last time we were down 8 days in a row, I think we were down close to 7%. So really, the market's done a pretty good job of consolidating and absorbed a lot of the selling and some of the correction. And now I think we're 2.5 days from the end of the quarter. So I really doubt that we're going to have like a rout between now and the end of the quarter to the downside. And I think that, a lot of people are going to look to maybe protect some of their performance. And then it'll be, in terms of policy and bigger picture issues, it'll be on to what would an infrastructure spending program look like? What would a tax reform plan look like? And then, of course, earnings season will start in a few weeks. And that will be, well, do any of these companies that have had big moves, are they showing better earnings yet?
Well, Tim, you covered a lot of ground there, but I do want to get your take on sectors. Now, at least for today's session, we're seeing energy higher, and this does come on the EIA figures, which did show a gain in crude stockpiles, but it was less than forecast. And also yesterday, we saw a reversal in transportation. So what do you expect to see going forward?
Well, you mentioned transportation, and I think that's key because there's been a number of times in the last few years when the Russell 2000 and the Dow Jones Transport Index have been a little bit of a leading indicator technically for the other broad market indices. And now, after yesterday, the Russell all of a sudden quietly is up 4 days in a row. And the Russell and the transports did give us some warning signs 2.5 weeks ago that maybe the rally was stalling out. So for both of those to stabilize, for the transports to hold 9,000, for the Russell to hold 1250 and try to move a little bit higher, that those would be important. And oil, I think, also is very important. I think we're going to be in a relatively tight range for oil because there's tons of supply, and maybe the Saudis can extend their cutback program a little bit, but I don't think it's going through 60.
Well, Tim, we've covered equities and we've covered energy as well as transportation. So we do have to take a look at Brexit since today is March 29th. And Theresa May's representative did hand the letter over to Donald Tusk in the EU. And now the formal Brexit process has begun. But we have a lot of hurdles to go through between the formal process actually being executed. And across the Atlantic, we also have the French elections. So how are you now factoring all these into your overall strategy?
Well, look, the macro data coming out of the UK certainly has not been hurt at all by Brexit yet. Now, clearly, it hasn't happened yet, but people were the pro EU people in the UK were talking a really bad scenario for their economy on the downside. None of that has shown up yet. There's other factors involved probably. Their market hasn't taken a big hit. Maybe supported by the fact that the pound is quite a bit weaker, and there's a lot of moving parts in the future of the EU. If certainly if Le Pen wins the French election, that's a month away.
Well, Tim, I'm sure this will provide plenty of fodder for discussion here on the trading floor. So I look forward to discussing them with you in the near future. And thanks for your insight and analysis.
Sure, it's nice talking to you.